Some of my most favorite memories in gaming came from the times where I screwed up or made a mistake. Not because I saw the best ending or completed every side quest or made all the right choices, but because I failed. But in all of these memories, when I made those mistakes, the game didn't step in and say, no, stop, restart. It just picked up my mistakes and ran with it. It let the mistake become part of the experience itself. Because a perfect playthrough is often the least interesting one that we have. The weird stuff happens when things go wrong. Now, a lot of games are just terrified of failure. They're afraid of letting a quest go badly. They're afraid of having a door remain forever locked. They're afraid of letting your version of the story become too messy or too different from the original vision that the creators had planned. So instead, they all kind of do this thing where like, failure technically exists, but it doesn't really matter. But here's the problem with that, is that when a game protects the player too much from failure, they're also protecting them from having any sense of ownership over the story or the experience for themselves. Because your failures are what makes it yours. The game remembers the things that you have done, and it lets them seep and trickle everywhere else for you to see later. When it lets your playthrough become defined by the things that you missed, by the things that you've ruined, by the choices that you had to live with, that is when it becomes memorable. And for this video, we're going to talk about 4 of these games. We got Disco Elysium, Baldurs Gate 3. I'm just going to call it the FromSoftware games: Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. Hades is the 4th game. So let's start with Disco Elysium, where the whole point is that you are playing as one of the greatest failures, hot messes of all time, Harry Dubois. And Harry Dubois is a man who wakes up after a world-ending bender with no memory, no shoes, no dignity, and you have to solve a murder case. And the best thing about Disco is that failure is not separate from role-playing. Failure is the role-playing. You fail checks, you will miss clues, you'll say the wrong thing to the wrong person, you will embarrass yourself. Every failure helps to shape your character, and that's the magic of this game. In a lot of RPGs, failing a skill check feels like the content is being taken away, but in Disco Elysium, failure typically becomes content. Failing is 9 times out of 10 much more funny than succeeding. Sometimes it's more sad, and oftentimes failing tells you more about Harry than success ever could. Because suddenly you're not just trying to win every conversation or every investigation or encounter, whatever. You're just focused on discovering what kind of disaster this version of Harry is going to become. You know, are you the sad communist cop? Are you the superstar cop? Or my favorite, the sorry cop? Because sometimes people are not defined by the things they do well. They're defined by their blemishes, their limitations, their humiliations. That's why Disco Elysium feels so personal. And it's also the brilliance of the game. The game isn't saying, can you solve the case? I mean, it is saying that, can you solve the case? But it's also like asking you, who are you going to become? A perfect Harry is probably the least interesting version of Harry. But the best version is the one that misses the skill checks, who says weird things, that fails a conversation so bad that you just put your controller down and you just laugh and you stare at the screen for a while. That is failure being used to define your character in a game. But Baldur's Gate 3, that uses failure in a slightly different way. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 is obviously it's a massive game in terms of all of the NPCs, the playable characters, the locations, the items, the storylines that all interweave beautifully. And in Baldur's Gate 3 is like the quintessential game of, if you play through it and you have friends that play through the game and then you ask them about, oh, what did you think of Act 1? Odds are they're going to start saying some shit that's going to make you go, I didn't even know you could do that in Act 1. But the thing that Baldur's Gate 3 does, this is how it uses failure, is that 9 times out of 10, In Baldur's Gate 3, you are going to be allowed to fail forward, right? Your failures are going to shape which direction the story goes. Everything is always failing forward. If you fail a dice roll, it's never just, no, you can't do this thing. It's no, but now the conversation shifts. No, but now you're in combat because the person's pissed off. No, but now someone's dead and now you can't talk to them, so their whole quest line is done. Baldur's Gate 3 sometimes it lets you make a choice that just feels so obviously wrong and catastrophic that you're shocked, and it just goes, okay, well this is who you are then. If you play as a good person in Act 1, the game presents you a very obvious moral dilemma. You have this little camp of tieflings and druids and people, the good guys, right, who are scared because they know that there is an army of goblins coming to kill them, and the game is like, so how do you want to help protect the good people? But then if you want to, you can also just go talk to the leader of the bad people, the goblin leaders, and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna help you kill all of the good people. And there's weaker games out there being made by big studios that will give you the illusion of being able to help the goblins, but in reality, you just end up inadvertently helping the good guys because it fits the narrative. But Baldur's Gate 3 just lets you do it. It lets you just burn the entire moral premise of Act 1 to the ground if you want to. And the beauty of that is that if you choose to side with the goblins, the game just goes, this is your reality now moving forward. The world moves on. You can lose access to entire quest lines because of this. All those futures are now gone. And that absence is the point, because a playthrough is not only defined by the content that you see, it's oftentimes defined by all the content that you didn't see. And that's why choice matters, because a choice that gives you ultimately everything in the end, it's not even really a choice at that point. It's the illusion. Baldur's Gate 3 understands that becoming someone means you're not becoming everyone. Now, the FromSoftware games, they are famous for letting you fail in the obvious ways, where you will die, you'll learn, and then you'll try again. But the failure that makes me replay those games is often the more quiet variation of that, where you can miss NPCs, you can completely botch their side quests, and you can also just forget that they exist over time. You can progress too far and accidentally break a quest line without even realizing that a quest line existed in the first place. You can get to the end of Dark Souls 1 and then be like, oh my God, whatever happened to Big Hat Logan? And that failure doesn't make the game feel incomplete. It has a way of almost making the world feel bigger than it really is. But the fact that you can miss them or screw them up, and then all of a sudden you'll find the remains of one of those NPCs further in the game, it adds this sense of making the world feel alive. Things are going on with or without you behind the scenes, and it helps the world feel bigger, more immersive. Think about your first run in any of the FromSoft games, Souls 1, 2, 3, Elden Ring, whatever. Your first run never feels like a complete run. And even on that 5th playthrough, you're going to be finding and discovering NPC character arcs. I mean, probably even like locations and stuff like that. There's just so much to uncover because they're not afraid of letting you miss things. They're not afraid of letting you fail to see stuff. Your first run always feels like your little flawed playthrough of something that's just much bigger than you and your character. You survived the world, but you didn't fully get it. You didn't piece anything together. You killed the boss, but you missed the person. You reach the ending, but you still have 1,000 questions. And it creates a very specific kind of replayability. It's not replayability as in some sort of content checklist. It's replayability that's almost incentivized by curiosity or regret. But that helps make those games feel like they don't treat their worlds like a checklist. It's a living world that's happening with or without you. People move, things happen, opportunities disappear, quests will slip through your fingers, and then characters die. And that can create frustration, understandably, but it also creates mystery, it creates urgency and curiosity. It creates the sense that the world is existing beyond the edges of your attention. And that's why I always go back to those games. It's not to just beat them again. It's this idea of like, maybe there's like one more thing that I'll uncover that I still haven't seen or found. And that is failure enticing replayability. And then there's a game like Hades, which handles failure in an entirely different way. In Hades, you are supposed to fail. Death is not some rare catastrophic event. Death is the structure of the game. You try to fight your way out of the underworld. You inevitably get destroyed at some point, and then you come right back home. But the important thing is that Hades never makes death feel like you're being roadblocked or locked out of things or kicked out of the story. Death is how the story breathes. You die, and then characters react. You die, new dialogue appears, you die, and then relationships develop, the house changes, more story is revealed to you. In a lot of games, death is saying, you messed up, go back. But in Hades, it becomes a part of the loop. Fight, fail, come back, talk, learn, upgrade, try again. And because the writing is so reactive in Hades, a lot of the times death doesn't even feel like failure in a way. You almost die, and then there's a level of excitement of, oh, I wonder what's changed, or maybe I'll learn something new, or I'll meet somebody new. You're not just grinding attempts, you're building relationships, you're learning patterns, you're slowly understanding the world and the people inside of it. And you're getting obviously stronger mechanically. That's like the pattern of a roguelike game, is you just keep throwing yourself into the thresher, and eventually, slowly over time, you just get good at the game. But in Hades, every time you throw yourself into that thresher, you're also building a little bit more connection to the characters and to the world. And that's why Hades is such an elegant game, is that it takes that pattern that you see in a lot of roguelike games, and that's what a roguelite is, effectively, is just repeated runs over and over. But it found this really creative, elegant way of making that failure feel almost crucial to the progression and the immersion of the game. And because of that, I feel like Hades has one of the healthiest relationships with allowing the player to fail of like any game I've seen. It does a really good job of doing this. I don't want games to punish me for the sake of punishment. I just want games to trust me enough to let my playthrough be imperfect. Let me miss things. Let me fail the skill check. Let me say the wrong things to the wrong person. Let me make a mess and then keep playing through the mess. Because that mess is where the story becomes mine. A perfect playthrough is going to show you the most content, but an imperfect playthrough gives you something better. And that's a story that only you could make. And that's why games are better when they let you fail, because failure is not always the opposite of progress. Sometimes failure is the moment that a game stops feeling like content and it starts feeling more like memories. And your failures are what make it yours.